Good morning. This is Stuart Battle with the LaRouche organization. It is February 21st, 2024, and this is your daily update. I'm filling in for Harley Schlanger. He is not available this week, but we'll be back soon. Now, last week, as we've probably already mentioned, was the passing of Lyndon LaRouche on February 12th, 2019. It was the 5th anniversary. Now, LaRouche's life and work, I think it's important to say, really is the defining factor for the world today and for the current situation that is unfolding. And what I mean by that is the almost inexplicable collapse of decency, morality, the unfolding of acts of evil which really have no explanation. And the reason that I point to LaRouche's history in this is that he had forecast around the 1971 takedown of the Bretton Woods system that precisely this type of push for fascism, push for censorship and all-out control, and leading up to the drive for world war, if the underlying characteristics of the bankrupt financial system were not, reorganized, if they were, in other words, attempted to be saved, then this is what types of atrocities would be carried out in the name of so-called saving the system. So his forecast still underlines what it is that the task before the world is today. Now, what's going on? I'll mention that this week is a hearing at the UN's World Court, the International Court of Justice, which is taking up the discussion of Israel's decades-long occupation of Palestine. So this was actually something agreed upon or scheduled before the October 7th attacks. This goes back to December of 2022. And there are over 50 countries that are at the UN's, at the ICJ this week, presenting cases on the flagrant violation of international law by Israel. I'll just draw your attention to one presentation in particular, which was that given by the South African ambassador to the Netherlands, South Africa's representative there, who pointed out that the history of South Africa, of course, is not so recently experienced apartheid themselves. And what this gentleman said, Mr. Madonsela, is that the practices of the Israeli regime currently are an even more extreme form of apartheid that was institutionalized against black people in South Africa. So, I think that's an important thing to note, that is what was said by South Africa's representative there. So this hearing goes on all week. It certainly is playing a substantial role in continuing to undermine the narrative, and bring light to this discussion. So we'll have more from that as the week goes on. Now, at the same time, the United States vetoed a UN Security Council resolution yesterday that had been put forward by Algeria. This was calling for an immediate ceasefire and the release of all hostages, and the U.S. vetoed it. The UK abstained, and all other members voted in favor. So it, of course, was vetoed. Now, what the report is, according to a Reuters report, is that the U.S. has now put forward an alternative resolution which is calling for a temporary ceasefire and the release of hostages, and of course humanitarian assistance. It is also casting doubt on an Israeli invasion of Rafah, which is the southernmost city in Gaza, where over 1 million refugees have fled from other parts of the region, other parts of Gaza, and is now under threat to be invaded by Israel as well. And so the U.S. reportedly is saying that this should not proceed under current circumstances. And then lastly, it is this resolution is calling on or condemning calls by Israeli officials to colonize and settle Gaza after the conflict. It says that it rejects any actions that serves to reduce the territory of Gaza on a temporary or permanent basis. Now, these should not be confused with genuine statements. The U.S. has said similar things before. Israel, of course, has not listened, and the Biden administration thus far has not done anything to stand by its word. What this does indicate, because it is a stronger statement of anything said so far by the White House to Israel, is it reflects the growing pressure in the United States and abroad against the genocide that is being carried out, with the being condoned by the U.S. So this is posturing, and it certainly only indicates that more pressure is needed. But at the same time, it does tell you that we're having an effect, that the pressure that has been mobilized is having an effect. So much more is needed. Now, the World Food Program, which is also a United Nations aid program, announced yesterday that they've had to pause all deliveries to northern Gaza, and they cite what they call a complete chaos and violence and the collapse of civil order, which is, of course, means that Israel has refused to give even basic security guarantees to humanitarian convoys and has continued bombing the region. So this is terrible. UNICEF also has released now a report that found that 90% of children in Gaza are what they call facing severe food poverty, and 95% of pregnant women and breastfeeding women also are facing severe food poverty. So the humanitarian situation is worsening literally by the day. So it just underscores the urgency of resolving this situation, which, of course, the leadership, quote unquote leadership in the world, like I referred to, which is should be carrying out the so-called rules-based order, is failing to do, or is refusing to do. Now, in line with this, there is a diplomatic spat going on between Israel and Brazil. Brazil's President Lula da Silva made remarks earlier this week indicating that Israel was doing actions like what Hitler did to the Jews in World War II, which caused the Israelis to freak out and denounce him and call him persona non grata. There was some other activities going on, including a potential meeting, a supposed meeting with Lula and his advisors to discuss how to respond. What I think is notable, however, is that what was said by a journalist at Monitor Mercantil, who made the point that Lula's remarks were given at an African Union summit of heads of state of the African Union heads of state, in which Lula was one of only two foreign invited guests. The other invited guest was Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shitaya, which this journalist points out tells you something about the isolation of the Israeli government on the entire African continent, and clearly much beyond the African continent. But so I think that's notable. Now, the other thing I will just say before I close, which is what's developing this week, is the very notable case of Julian Assange. Assange is having his extradition case in the UK this week. This began yesterday, And I don't have much to report on from today, but I think it still nonetheless serves as a very important counterpoint to the notion of the rules-based order, where you've got one of the leading journalists who exposed the hypocrisy and war crimes throughout the Middle East in NATO and the US's wars, in the early part of the 2000s there. And not only has he been in prison without trial, but he was not even able to appear before the court today and yesterday because his lawyer said he's too ill to appear in the courtroom. So he is being murdered. He's been in solitary confinement for nearly 4 years now, and he's being murdered by the so-called democratic, free speech defending, United States. So this is the world we live in. This is the world of a breakdown of the system, the rules of the game, so to speak. And of course it tells you more than a little bit about the accusations of Putin in the death recently of Alexander Navalny in Russia. So just to come back and to conclude, again, I just want to stress that while certainly the crisis that confronts us is one of severe depravity, severe criminality, and danger of war, of a genocide, of the very real loss of the position of the United States and the entire West in the eyes of the world. But at the same time, as LaRouche pointed out 50 years ago now, it was underpinned by the actual collapse of the transatlantic financial system. And until that is corrected, reorganized and actually rebuilt with a physical means of economics, as opposed to blowing new bubbles of fake money, until that is corrected, then that's actually what is underlying the push for further means of fascism and war and conflict and suppression of any opposition to the so-called rules-based order today. So this is why Helga Zepp-LaRouche and the LaRouche organization have pushed for the Oasis Plan for Israel-Palestine and the entire region, because what you need is not simply reworking the rules or improving the situation or stopping a conflict among enemies, but you actually need to change the entire rules of the situation. A real new vision is needed, where the nations, not just of this region but of the world, see themselves as existing peacefully in accordance with a common mission for peaceful development for all. And that is on the table. That potential exists not just in the minds and the hopes of people, but it exists concretely now in what the work of the BRICS is doing, what the work of other portions of the global south and global majority are doing. You see it in resistance internationally, with what's continuing to be a major fight within Europe amongst farm sectors to reverse the trend of deindustrialization and Malthusian shutdown of food production. And there has never been more of an opportunity to realize that vision of a peaceful community of nations existing and collaborating for the common aims of mankind. So I think that's how I'll leave it, and I think it's a great time to organize, so please join us, be active. You can learn more about the Oasis Plan on the LaRouche Organization website at LaRoucheorganization.com. And otherwise, be sure to subscribe to our channel, share this video, and we will see you again tomorrow. Thank you.
Hello, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Support our independence to produce videos like these. Become a member of the LaRouche organization at thelarouche.org/member. By becoming a member for $25 or more, you'll get special access to the EIR Alert Daily Briefing and Weekly Magazine, which is what I read to stay on top of things.